Hello, everybody. Welcome to GMAT Club's live session on the admit journeys of five students. We've got five students who are matriculating to business schools this year. We'd love to learn about their experiences and hopefully use stuff for the upcoming application season. Also, we know that COVID is rampaging India at this moment, and there is severe shortage of oxygen and other medical supplies. We hope through this initiative to help the efforts against COVID in India. So I let you guys introduce yourselves. Meghna, starting with you.
Hi everyone. I'm Meghna. I've worked in consulting, both for-profit and now social impact, in the US, London, and now in Mumbai. I'll be going to Wharton next year.
Thank you so much, Yashowat.
Hey everyone. Firstly, I hope that all of you are safe and healthy amidst this COVID crisis. My name is Yashwat Saharia, and I completed my graduation from Shriram College of Commerce. And post that, I worked in consulting at Partner in the education space, and currently I'm working in healthcare at Abbott. I'm based out of Mumbai in India, and this fall I'll be matriculating at Harvard Business School.
Thank you so much. Excited to have you here. Vaibhav.
Hi, I'm Vaibhav. I graduated out of IIT Delhi in 2015. Since then, I've been working in tech companies in various business roles. Right now, I'm a product manager at Gojek. I'm joining Columbia and starting my MBA there this fall.
Excited to have you here. Jyotsna.
Hi everyone. So most of my work experience has been in data science in startups across different sizes in the Bay Area. And currently I'm a senior data scientist at a fintech startup. And I'm going to Haas this fall.
Fantastic. Abhinandini.
Hey everyone, I'm Abhinandini, and I'm currently working at a women's health startup called Proactive for Her, and we're building India's preferred brand for women healthcare. Before this, I've worked in venture capital and also consulting. I'm also from Shriram College of Commerce, like Yashavat, and I'll be going to Stanford this year.
Excellent. Abhinandini, before we kick off with the session, would you want to share some details on the initiative?
Yes, thank you so much, Ashish. So, a little bit about what we're doing. So, Students Fight COVID is an initiative that's supported by a community of 250 plus recent admits and current students from top MBA schools. MBA students from HBS, Stanford, Wharton, Haas, Columbia, and all the top schools in the world have come together to mobilize donations towards organizations that are doing grassroots level changes to fight this COVID crisis that India is going through. We're doing this by one-on-one mentoring and group coaching sessions. And so far, we've raised 18 lakhs. And we'd love your support in taking this even further. To know more about us, join our fight, please go to our website, studentsfightcovid.in, or log into our Instagram handle, which is studentsfightcovid.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Abhinandini. So let's get started with the session. We'd hopefully want to delve into your entire application journey, so that can be of some help to the next batch. So I'd like to start with the tests. And one dilemma which a lot of people have is between the GMAT and the GRE. I know, Jyotsna, you faced this dilemma, so I'd want to start with you. So, can you briefly describe your journey with the test, and maybe how you started with the GMAT and how you pivoted to the GRE?
Yes. So my story is the mistake that everyone should not make. So I started off with the GMAT in early April, and I really struggled with it. I think it was early March. I really struggled with it, and then I wanted to give my applications in round one, but that couldn't happen. I gave multiple practice tests, and my score plateaued. And after a while, I was like, this is not working, and I shifted to the GRE in like December or something, and I immediately got a very good score. I think the mistake I made was that I should have taken a practice test for the GMAT and the GRE in the very beginning, because I think that they are very, very different. They test different cognitive abilities. This GMAT is more of like, if you have a lot of cognitive endurance and you can do 3 hours straight of and like 1 hour straight of each section, it's better. And for the GRE, if you can like focus 30-minute bursts, you can perform better in that. And also between the GMAT and the GRE, it kind of also tastes it kind of also tests different abilities, especially in the verbal section. I was very good with words. I realized that later on, compared to the GMAT verbal sentence correction, for example. So I think it's important to take both the tests in the beginning and see where you're good at and see what is easier, see what you can learn faster, and then progress from there. I should have done that, but never too late. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. A quick follow-up on that, Jyotsna. So there is some element of doubt amongst a lot of applications if applying with the GRE would actually disadvantage them in their MBA applications. So did you find? Did you experience? Do you think that is true? Do you think those concerns are well founded? That applying with the GRE might disadvantage you in the entire admission process?
I actually do not think so. I think when the schools say that we consider the GMAT or the GRE and we give equal weightage to both, I think that's very much true. I actually applied with the GMAT and then I updated the schools with my GRE info, and they gladly took it and they considered that as well. And I do not think it's a disadvantage. And also, GRE is a very new addition to the MBA journey. So it's a lot more like the averages are a lot more standardized because it's taken across so many students that are not just MBAs. So I think you might just have an upper hand there in terms of the GRE.
Got it. So thank you so much for that. Now we'll move on to the application itself. One thing which I think a lot of people would benefit from knowing is what are the timelines. So I'd like it'd be great if at all of you could share the timelines of your application. When you started with the GMAT prep, when you took the GMAT, when you started the first essay, and so on and so forth. We'll start with you, Meghna.
Sure. So I don't think my journey is very average because I actually took the GMAT in, I think, 2018 and early 2018 because I was thinking about applying then the first round, like the first time around. And then I got a job opportunity in social impact that I was really interested in. So I decided to hold off on the application. But I do think it really benefited that I had the GMAT completely out of the way when I did finally think about applying. So I applied actually in 2020, I think, because I'm a deferred candidate, like Abhinandini. But I applied both round 1 and 2 of that year to different schools just to give myself a little more time to work on applications. And I started thinking about my story around thinking about my story and figuring out, exactly how I wanted to convey what I wanted from an MBA. And doing the first set of essays probably took me maybe about 6 weeks. And then subsequent essays were for different schools became like a little shorter each time because I had a better idea of what I wanted to say. Some schools do have more open-ended essays, as Abhinandini and Yashovat are probably well aware. So I think those essays might take a little more time. But usually as you go on, it becomes less each time. So that was roughly my journey.
Yep. Thank you so much, Yashovat.
So, with respect to the journey, I think I completely second Meghna on the point of getting the GMAT out of the way, because I think by having a GMAT score, you're you're much more confident about the kind of schools that you will apply to, because like you kind of like there are the stuff like there's a score range which you see for schools, and then accordingly bucket your schools into round 1 and round 2. So I also actually had a kind of an unusual journey because my GMAT got delayed due to the COVID lockdowns that were introduced in March of 2020, and I ended up giving the GMAT in July while I was also simultaneously working on applications. However, what I've heard from seniors and what I think you should do is that probably get done with the GMAT around January, February, or March of the year you're planning to apply to. If you're like going like full throttle in round one, and kind of start with your applications in terms of introspecting and brainstorming your story. And if you're going ahead with the consultant, kind of identifying a consultant, speaking to them, if both of you kind of have consonance over what you're trying to pitch, and start that process sometime by May, because May, June, July, and August, like these are the 4 months where you actually put in the grind, so that your house is in order by 30th of August before you put in all those applications in September for round one. So that's how I think it might help with respect to timelines for upcoming candidates.
Great. Thank you, Yashowat, for that. Vaibhav?
Cool. So I think just like being my Yashovat, I think my trajectory was also slightly atypical, where I wanted to apply the year before. So I had already given my GMAT in June or July, and then I gave a GMAT again in January, and I was satisfied with that score. And then I applied to one school in April, INSEAD, and then I applied to Columbia in June, and then I applied to two more schools in round one, and that was it. So I think overall, it helped that I was, as Yashovat mentioned, that I was able to get GMAT out of the way, so that I could actually get into the meat of application process pretty soon.
Got it. Thank you, Vaibhav. Jyotsna?
Yeah, so mine was not the same as the rest of the three here. It was a very non-linear journey. Started off late. Shouldn't start off late. That's not what you should do. So I started off in March. I gave the GMAT in July, August, and then I was also working on my applications during that time. I think for me, applications didn't take a long time. Maybe let's say about 2 months, and then I had to delay all my applications to round two, and keep the GRE again. So yeah, and that really gave me time to kind of like iterate on my applications and make it better. Since I'd already finished a bunch of applications, I kind of learned from that process and made my applications a lot better for round two. So that helped as well.
Got it. Thank you so much, Jyotsna and Abhinandini.
So my journey was not too linear as well. And I'm very inspired to even know that everybody's journey was so unique. And I think that's the message that we're trying to get across as well. I started preparing for GMAT pretty late, even after all the golden advice I got that please start early, start early, start early. I think one should really put in a lot of buffer. And I was part of a very, very small team in my previous job. And it was very, very difficult to take out time and do focus prep. So that's why it got really delayed for me. I ended up applying in round two to schools. So GMAT took a long time, and I was trying to improve my score, though I ended up applying with my first score itself because I was unable to improve it. So that I started preparing for GMAT properly in May. So I was supposed to go last year. So I'm talking about 2019. And I gave my first attempt in around July. And which is the score I ended up applying with, though I tried to improve it quite a bit till November, December. And then I did my applications in December end and then applied. So I would say not a very linear journey, would not recommend it at all. Please be diligent and not follow me and work on your GMAT in time.
Thank you so much. I'd want to build upon this question, and maybe Weber, you can take this. What would you think would be the advantages of actually applying early? I know you said it's important and all of that, but what do you think that an applicant can gain by applying early?
Yeah, so I think for me, one question that I wanted to kind of figure out is that, okay, which schools should I kind of apply to? And generally people stagger which school they apply to. They tend to, try to get one school in the back first and then try to go for a school which they consider more ambitious. So on that note, I think I started out applying to NCR pretty early in April, and I already had an offer in June. And then I applied to Columbia around June, and I also had an offer for Columbia before round one. So I think throughout this journey, because I had admits, I was I I was like more confident about going through this journey, and like even when I had like interviews, like it wasn't like it was either like that or nothing. It was either that or that, which are both like good options. So I think like that kind of helped.
Got it. Got it. So, building on that, maybe you can take this, Yashovat. Is there any difference in applying between R1 and R2? There is a general perception that there are more number of seats available in R1, but schools, you hear them repeatedly say there's no difference. But as an applicant, do you find there to be any difference between R1 and R2?
Uh, so I think like what I've heard like from again there's no facts enough to justify this, but what we hear is that the seat allocation in terms of R1 and R2 kind of works at a 60 and a 40%, like for schools that have two rounds. Now, per se, I think there's no difference between applying an R1 and R2 because I know quite a few people who have gotten through both the rounds with kind of similar profiles. So I kind of am of that school of thought where R1 and R2 don't make quite a big difference. However, having said that, I think for particular schools, like for Columbia, Weber will be able to probably elaborate. Like having that early decision application, like probably that's something that's submitted in mid to end of August. And even for TUC, if someone's considering applying to TUC, where you apply by a given date and you have a guaranteed interview. So I think that where the schools explicitly call out, you have an early decision or if you have a guaranteed interview, then it does make sense to apply early. But apart from that, I think that R1 and R2 isn't something that is a major differentiator. But moving then to R3 and R4 kind of becomes difficult, especially for international applicants in terms of timelines and visas and the number of seats available. So yeah, I think R1 and R2 shouldn't make a lot of a difference. It's always better to put in a more complete application in R2 rather than the half-baked application which you're not happy with in R1.
Got it. Well, coming back to you, could you share your experiences on the early rounds? Maybe like Yashovat mentioned.
You mean like is it advantageous to apply in early
Yes,
round? Like
yes, 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 yes.
yeah, I think for Colombia specifically, I had researched this, like whether there is more chances of getting into round one. And I think like in that article, they used a lot of data as well. And I think like it is slightly more likely that you get into Colombia. And I think their perception is more around that the people who apply before round one, uh, they they basically have to like sign into the fact that okay, like I will only go to Colombia if you accept me. So I think like because of that reason they kind of like give more weightage. But I agree with Yashova between round one and round two, like whichever round you can turn in a better application, I think you should do that.
Got it. Thank you so much, guys. Now that we've looked at the testing and then we've looked at the research, Meghna, I'll maybe take this out to you. How did you start with your application? Like, what was step one of the application? How did you do your research? And if you could detail that out for us, please.
Do you mean in terms of selecting schools?
Selecting schools and the kind of people that you reached out to on LinkedIn, or maybe did you collate your stories in a central repository? What was step one for you, and how did you actually go about doing that?
So maybe like step zero for me was figuring out what I really wanted from an MBA, I guess, and what I wanted to focus on. So even like I said, like 2 years ago when I was originally thinking about it, I knew I wanted to go into social impact. So once like, and so that was clear even when I did end up applying in 2019. So like that was my first lens of research, like what school can really help me, like achieve my goals in terms of an MBA, in terms of learning more about social impact and exploring certain sectors within it that I was interested in. And I think I'm sure everyone like for school research, I think one of the most important things is beyond all the websites and some of the in-depth reports. Like I know we discussed like MBA Mission has some in-depth reports that can really help you get into what differentiates one school from another and what the programs actually end up looking like. But beyond that, I would probably say the most helpful thing for me was talking to people who went to those schools. And I was a little lucky because I went to undergrad in the US. So I did already know sometimes people who were already in the school. So I didn't have to try cold reaching out through LinkedIn. But in some cases, I definitely did just search a school on LinkedIn, try and find some connection either through my workplace, like the offices in the US, or I actually searched my company's employee list for the schools that I was interested in, and I reached out because you're likely to get a better response rate that way. So yeah, I think I really wanted to identify schools that were really, for me personally, strong at social impact, because I knew like that's 100% what I wanted to focus on. And even though a school might be an amazing MBA program in other ways, it wouldn't fulfill my needs. So I think applying that criteria, talking to people personally, going through like in-depth reports like MBA mission reports. So that's how I ended up coming up with the list. And for me, I sort of came up with that list at the start of the year and just split it between round 1 and round 2, depending on my time frame and how much time I had.
Got it. Abhinandini, would you want to share your experiences on this as well?
Yeah, I think I resonate with a lot of what Meghna said, reading up on schools, reaching out to people. I think one more thing I got lucky with that I did, and it gave me a big feeler about the campus was and the life there was, I was traveling to US for work, and I ended up just taking these side trips to visit the school. Ended up doing classes at Stanford and Wharton and even Columbia. Visited HBS but couldn't do a classes. So I definitely like got a feel of the school, the campus, tried to meet people and like tried to even reach out to maybe third degree connects who might be there on campus, even if I did not know them. And even if like, I don't know if it does anything to the application to be honest, but I think what it definitely did, it was inspired me to understand how life would be for even a day on campus, and made me like understand if I want to apply to the school or not, and really see it for myself.
Got it. So, just a quick extension. So, what were some of the questions that you personally were looking to have answered while you were doing your research? I think this will help a lot of the prospective applicants in knowing what are the kind of questions that are actually good to ask a current student or an alum, right? Because it always helps to show them that you've done your research rather than getting all of them, getting everything out from them. So, what are the kind of questions that you personally had asked them?
So I would say number one thing for me was that I wanted some things out of my MBA experience, and one was global exposure, and the second was um, just transitioning into a specific job or like industry, and the third was like the entire environment, cultural fit, and friendships, and all of that. So I would try to center my questions around all of this. For example, if you want to break into tech post your MBA, so I would ask like, what are the tech clubs like? Or if you want to break into, let's say, private equity, so then you would ask, what exactly are like the private equity initiatives there? Are there a lot of companies or a lot of funds that come for that specific job that you're looking for as well? Because it's a variety of all factors that feed into your decision making. And then also culture, I think, was a big part. Like, do you want this New York life, or do you want to be hidden away in like mountains in Tuck? So I think that also definitely is very interesting, and it's good to ask like current students of how do you think, how are you managing, and what is the bonding like between various between your section mates and your friends from different backgrounds.
Got it. Thank you so much. Jyotsna, moving on to you. So now that you've done your research and you've done with you've done with the testing. So how do you approach the first essay? Like what or any component of the application in particular? Like what did you find to be very tricky or something that needed a lot of your attention?
Yeah. So after that, I actually filtered out the schools that I want to apply to, and then looked at the questions for each school. For example, for Haas, it was what makes you come alive, and the second one was what do you want to get out of Haas. Um, the thread that is most common across the schools is your career goals and what you want to get out of an MBA, right? And then you can kind of tailor it to each school and the resources that each school has. I wouldn't recommend copy pasting one school's essay into another school's essay because that never works and it's not a good idea. But research the school and try to find out the resources that they have based on what you want out of the school. And you can use that across different schools. That's one thing I did. And the second thing I did was, what personal story or stories do I want to showcase to the schools that I'm applying to, and how does that tie into the school's values? So the personal story or stories, picked a couple of them and worked with that. I think it's very important to lean into your personal story, because that really does what make you unique. I think schools are really not, lying when they say that they are looking at a holistic application of you. So you need to, be true to yourself and kind of make your story as personal and unique to you as possible, instead of writing what the school wants to hear. And that's how I started off, just like by writing down my personal stories, career goals, what I want to get out of this school, and going from there.
Thank you so much, Jyotsna. So, building on that, Vaibhav, I'd want to reach out to you on this. So, the goals is something that is very integral in every college's application, in every school's application. So, how did you approach that, and what would be your advice to people who are actually approaching that essay?
Yeah, I think it's the one thing that like everybody kind of needs to be very clear on before approaching any essays. And like, to be honest, like I just thought of like what I would personally want to do, and that kind of like led me to the goal. When I say like what I personally want to do, like there are like series of questions that you need to like think about, like whether you would want to do an MBA or some other kind of master. Would you want to do an MBA in your home country versus US? If you were to go to US, what advantages would there be? Would you want to stay there for a longer term or come back to your home country after a while, and so on and so forth. So as you like kind of like answer each of these questions for yourself, you have like some tentative thought process on like what would you want to do after your MBA. And if you do it like in this manner, in a more like organic manner, like thinking about what actually you want to do, then the goals that kind of come to your head are also like very aligned with what you have done with your experience, because after all, your experiences themselves have influenced what you want to do later on in your life. So I think that that's the approach that I would suggest.
Got it. Meghna, coming to you. So, now everyone generally applies to multiple schools, right? So there are components which are common across schools, and there are components which are unique. So could you actually shed some light on what are the components that can be reused, and what are the components, that are unique to every school?
So I think this was one part where I definitely tried to optimize, because one thing that someone told me is that, like the essays are, of course, probably the most important thing, but don't underestimate the amount of time that it takes to actually fill out just the forms that the schools have. Because each school will have a form in their own format. And so that will include things like job experience, brief descriptions of the job, university experience, parental information sometimes. So all of that is on top of, the application essays as well. So that's one part that I would say, just focus. If you do that for one school, it will overlap a lot for the others. So, but don't underestimate things like, 250 character job descriptions to highlight your role. So I think that was one area where I tried to, really focus on that the first school I did and get it right. And then that I could use across, which made filling out the forms themselves, which can be quite time consuming, perhaps much easier, because even though each school might have a different format, they tend to ask similar broad questions. In terms of stuff that's different, I think obviously essay, as Jyotsna mentioned, essays are unique, because I think admissions officers probably read like hundreds, if not thousands of them. So even if you think that like, oh, I've changed enough details about one school and my goals are kind of similar, I really did just put aside my old essays and at least try to start from scratch with the new ones. And as Vaibhav and Abhinandini mentioned, the research that you do on schools will obviously feed into that. So as you're selecting schools, that's still useful. I think that was pretty much in terms of what's
if I can add to that answer,
Please
I
do.
think what would be common across Your applications would be the introspection that you do about yourself and your choices that you've made. Because I think every school is very intrigued to understand what are the kind of choices you made and how did you land up here where you're like applying to this specific B school. So I think that is really, really common across schools. And I would definitely encourage, if like Stanford is your one of your top schools, to start with Stanford, because the question is sort of makes you introspect really hard, which is what matters to you the most and why. And it's a very, very comprehensive application. So if you'd start with that, other applications do seem easier. At least that's what happened with me. But I know that some people can tend to get lost if they're not able to introspect in the right direction. But it definitely worked for me.
Just wanted to
Got it.
add one more thing that Abhinandini reminded me of is one, like somewhere in your application, probably, even if the school doesn't ask it directly, you probably, as she said, should answer, like why you want an MBA, like how it will add to your career trajectory and what your goals are after it. Some schools may deliberately not ask about your goals after it, but I think the rest of it they will want to understand because, it sounds obvious, but sometimes the questions don't end up asking it, so you do have to figure out where to put it in.
Got it.
But that's one thing that's common. Sorry.
Yeah, got it. So a quick, the next question, maybe Yashovat, you can take this. I'd want to know, maybe from all of you actually, why did you choose the school that you're going to? That'll be useful for the applicants coming in to understand what the school offers. If you could help with that, please.
I think that why I chose the school that I'm going to is that it's a lot to do with healthcare. So basically, the healthcare initiative or like even the healthcare focus at HBS and Wharton both are like extremely strong. And like those are my two top schools, which I out of all the schools that I applied to in terms of the healthcare opportunities, the healthcare alumni, and also the various entrepreneurship opportunities that emerge from healthcare in these two schools. So I think that looking at a school from a sector perspective is something which you should look at. Second, I think what is also that you could also look at a school in terms of a location perspective, because a lot of people have that they want to settle in a particular location after their MBA. Maybe like if so, I think that is something you could look into. Like if you want to like work in Europe, then you could probably look at LBS and INSEAD over the US schools rather than applying to US schools if you want to settle in the US. And the other part apart from that, I think, is what kind of people also look into is that if they have a particular course of study which is way more applicable in particular schools. For example, in Chicago booth, like in Chicago booth, what you see is that the finance curriculum is like probably more, and like even Chicago book and Wharton both is more intense, or it's more inclined towards it as compared to other schools. So that again kind of becomes a differentiating factor. So I think that this is a bit more personal, depending from person to person, but industry, location, and stream of study, if you think on these three parameters, it can kind of help you arrive at an answer.
Cool. Vaibhav?
Cool. So I actually comment on among the two admits that I got. So I got into INSEAD in Columbia, and within that, what I personally want to do in my career is to stay in tech, and my decision mostly hinged on US being a bigger ecosystem compared to, let's say, Europe or Singapore. And I kind of see myself like either participating in the US tech ecosystem or the Indian tech ecosystem in the longer term. And then Columbia in itself also offered like several advantages, like one being in New York, which is like the second biggest tech ecosystem after like the SF area, has opportunities because you can do like in-semester internships, you have greater access to speakers and so on and so forth. Next to that, it also had like a surprising depth of resources and initiatives in tech and entrepreneurship. So those were the reason for me choosing Columbia.
Got it. Jyotsna?
Yeah, so I wanted to continue to stay in tech and either explore product entrepreneurship VC. So I think for me, the top two schools are Haas and GSB, and Haas especially because apart from what Yashovat mentioned, which is the how easy is it to get into the industry that you want to go into, which of course in SF, of the two schools, there, like it really does make a difference, right? Because it's in SF. The other thing also apart from that is talking to Haas alumni, figuring out if those are the kind of people that you want to spend those 2 years with, I think is also very important, because 2 years of your life, and that is your long-term network, so you want to make sure that you like those people. So culture, apart from industry and location, also for me was important.
Got it. Thank you so much, Meghna.
I think so for me, like factors like location and the resources that I could avail of at the school, I kind of decided before I applied, because I only applied to schools that I felt were, like kind of where I could really see myself going. I think what Jyotsna mentioned about culture was really important to me, and just understanding the kind of people that go there, and in terms of just in a little more depth in terms of, like the career outcomes I wanted. How did people get there? How supportive were the career development offices? What was the size of the alumni network actually was one that I considered, because I was definitely torn between two schools. One other point was the size of the scholarship amount, because schools may initially offer different scholarships. Although one factor there is if you've gotten into one school and you tell them X school is giving me X amount, which is lower than what they are offering you, they can sometimes, try and meet that if you are very keen on the school. And one thing I just wanted to mention, I guess, that no one else has touched on yet, is personal factors, which I think people have touched on. But for me, I think being on the East Coast ultimately was the deciding factor, because my partner is there and I didn't want to do a 5-hour flight away. So I think that's also, something that's worth taking into account, because I think all these schools are incredible, and probably many of the schools you will get into are also incredible. But you want to be happy where you are in terms of both culture, career, and personal life.
Cool. Abhinandini?
So my personal experience was that I had gotten into Howard as well. So it was a great problem to have of choosing between HBS and Stanford. And I chose Stanford because of the tech and the entrepreneurship ecosystem. I felt it aligned with me more personally, and even the culture I felt was something that would really challenge me and open me up, like based on whatever stereotypes float around and whatever you hear about the schools and whoever you interact with. I just felt that Stanford is that cultural experience that I think maybe need more, and also the entire tech entrepreneurship ecosystem and people. There are like statistically and whatever I could see, like from the vibe, is that there are more entrepreneurially oriented people like just right after their MBA. So you definitely are in that ecosystem, and I wanted to be there. So that's how I chose Stanford. Scholarship is, I think, a great point that Meghna touched upon. But for like everybody, and this is something I did not know about HBS and Stanford, is that they offer need-based scholarships. So it's actually not sort of a merit-based any allocation. They just offer need-based fellowship based on your monetary history and how much your salary has been and everything. So wasn't a big factor for me, but for everyone out there, this is the case with these two schools.
Got it. So I think we can take some questions from the comments. Maybe we can have you guys help out with them. Yep. So Celsia asks, what were some unique things about your profile that you might have think would have given you an upper hand? Maybe we can start this off with you, Jyotsna.
I think that unique things. It's unique to me, of course, because I think another thing, just like unsolicited advice, like I fell into a lot of comparison mode when I was applying to business schools, and like, oh, someone's GMAT score is better than me, or someone's work experience is better than me. Please don't do that. Never helps. After that caveat, I think for me, the unique things were I had a lot of international work experience that engineers applying from India do not usually have. That's one. That's a big one. The second one was I have done a lot of volunteer work with a nonprofit here, mentoring women from low-income backgrounds who don't have any experience in tech, and that gave me actually a lot of leadership experience as well. That was the second thing. And the third thing was there are not a lot of engineers who go into data science, and especially machine learning, data science. So I'm come from a very technical background. So I think these three things really did make me stand out. Yeah.
Got it. I think I'd want to again remind the viewers about the initiative we are actually doing to help with the COVID fight in India. Abhinandini, if you could reiterate that for our audience.
Yes, sure. Thank you so much, Vishish. So for everyone, we are a part of Students Fight COVID. We are a community of 250 plus recent admits and current students who've come together to fight this COVID crisis in India. And we're doing this by mobilizing donations towards causes such as increasing oxygen supplies, and we're offering one-on-one mentoring and also group coaching sessions through this initiative. And we have so far raised 18 lakhs, which is around 25,000 USD. To learn more about us, visit our website at studentsfightcovid.in or our Instagram handle, studentsfightcovid. And please, if reach out to us if you'd like to contribute in any way or donate.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Abhinandini. So the next question is, do you have any advice for younger applicants with about a year's work experience? I'd let any one of you guys take this.
So,
Go ahead, Meghna. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to say that I considered applying when I had about 2.5 years work experience. I think most of us in general do have more than that. So maybe I'm not the best person to answer, but I did. One thing I thought about then was what was I like? One thing I think it depends which schools you're applying to, because maybe in Europe a little less work experience is what I've heard is more acceptable, whereas perhaps in the US they do like you to demonstrate a little more why you're looking for it at that time specifically then, as opposed to maybe developing your career experience and getting a little more experience. So I don't know if this is exactly advice, but I guess just really reflect on, do you want to apply right away? If not, you actually have a lot of time. So just spend that time maybe thinking about your career, what journey you want to take, how you can get experience in areas that you're interested in. Take your GMAT within 5 years. You'll have a lot of time. That's all I have to offer. Sorry, Abhinandini, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that it really depends on what you're looking for. But I would say really rethink about how many years of work ex do you want to go with, because as much as I've heard and like spoken with people, generally I know that Indian candidates even end up applying with like 3-4 years of work ex, but in the US and even other international candidates are applying with more years of work ex. So generally it helps to be on that pace with your other batchmates when you're going there, and to be able to contribute from real life experiences. I feel it really formulates your leadership style. It really makes you understand of who you are as a person. The more you work, the more you interact with people before you go to B school, because in B school as well, you would be building on whatever you've learned for the first 4-5 years. So I would say think about if 1 year is the right thing for you, then definitely. But then if you can wait, and then if you can get more experience, and if you can get an understanding of what exactly is it that you want to do, then do that.
Thank you, Abhinandini. The next question, if you could take this. This is regarding the Ambani Fellowship. If you could shed some light on this, please.
Yes. So I was a recipient of the Ambani Fellowship. It's this, for everyone's context, it's this Reliance Fellowship that's exclusive for Stanford GSB folks, which which covers like 80% of the total cost of your MBA, and they also finance your GMAT cost and also your application fee. The catch there is that you have to come back to India within 2 years and be working for an Indian company. I did not end up taking the fellowship because I got like good need-based aid as well, and I opted for that instead. But I think it's a great fellowship for anybody who wants to come back to India and is very, very certain on that goal and wants to take advantage of this, because it's almost like a free ride to go to a great school. The application process is that I think generally applications open by May, and you have to first apply for the fellowship, and you don't need a GMAT or a GRE score for that. And then you would be selected as one of the top 50 finalists. I think 50 is the number. And after that, you have to apply to Stanford like any other normal candidate would. It's just that your application fee would be waived off if you're a finalist, and also they will pay for one attempt of GMAT. Not if you've already given it, then you won't get it. I think that's the process, and it's even likely that you might end up getting selected at Stanford, but you might not get the fellowship even after you're part of the finalist pool. So it's really like it's a joint decision between Stanford and Reliance, but mostly Stanford actually. Even I'm not super clear.
Thank you so much, Abhinandani. So I want to take this question. Maybe I can put this to Vaibhav and Yashovat. So is there anything that you wish you knew before applying? Anything that you would have done differently as a part of your application process? Maybe you can start with Yashovat.
So, having thought about it, like if I knew anything before applying, I think that there's something actually I did a bit later, but I wish I had done this earlier. Is that when we're actually doing the school research part, like what we generally hear from people is that speak to alums, speak to people who have worked in their organization in order to get a sense of the culture, opportunities, and how that school works. I think that speaking to faculty also really helps, and specifically the head of the department in which probably you're planning to major, be it like finance or marketing or healthcare or something of that sort. So obviously it's really difficult because they don't generally respond. But I think that you should definitely try and cold email faculty members, which I later did for Wharton and Kellogg, and kind of have conversations with them in order to understand how good a fit, or whether you're a good fit for that school or not, and what type of opportunities exist over there given your past experiences as well as what your future goals are. So I think that that's a small point I want to mention over here.
Got it. Thank you so much, Yashovat. Vaibhav?
Cool. So I think I have an even smaller point. So I think like one thing that I kind of realized I shouldn't have done is when I was applying to one of the schools in round one, I wasn't very satisfied with the quality of the application, but I submitted it anyway. In retrospect, I could have polished it a bit more and submitted in round two instead, because the chances in round one and round two are not as different, and you should like apply when you're fully satisfied with your application.
Thank you so much. Jyotsna, would you want to add anything to this?
What I mentioned before, just really do start early. I cannot emphasize that enough. I think that that was my that I would have done if I knew what I was getting myself into.
Got it. So I've got another question from Abhishek here. Maybe Vaibhav or Jyotsna can take this. How much experience would you suggest for somebody coming from a tech background and who wants to get into product management roles post an MBA? Or anyone else who wants to take this up, please feel free to.
Jyotsna, would you like to take this, because you have worked in a core tech role?
Yeah, sure. So I have spoken with alums who have pivoted into tech from, let's say, ranging from 3 to any number of 7, 8 years. So a minimum of 3 years from a tech background. I think it's important that you showcase the impact that you've had. So I don't see how anything less than 3. Or I'm biased because I applied with like 5.5 to 6 years of experience in tech. So yeah, I mean, average I've seen is around 5. Yeah, I don't know if I have anything more to add here.
Got it. Uh, Vedant asks, how important was the city for all of you? How much did it contribute to your decision-making process? I know we've heard from you, Meghna. Anyone else would want to take this up?
I think it depends on like what you want to do and how important is a city for that specific goal. As Yashovat mentioned, his inclination was more on healthcare, and that's why like Boston made great sense. For me, I think if I had to like decide between a college based out of SF in Silicon Valley versus a college based in New York, it would have been a tougher decision. But I think I was happy enough with New York also being a big enough ecosystem. However, if you're in an industry where a particular city is not really a very strong hub, I think then it would be a lesser consideration in your particular case.
Got it.
I can add to this as well. For me as well, the city did matter because of like what I wanted to pivot into, which was tech and entrepreneurship, where San Francisco is the hub. So that made me choose Stanford as well, and it seemed very well aligned with the goals. Though HBS is a greater brand name in India, definitely, right, and everybody knows about it. But just it felt more tuned to my goals to be in Stanford and also be in San Francisco because of the kind of exposure I wanted for the next 2 years, and then after that, post MBA for at least immediately after my MBA. So that's what made me choose Stanford as well. I think Vashish is frozen, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Do
Does
we all
anyone?
want to answer this question?
Yeah.
So I think the question is, could you please share some light on desired job experience and how best to use your previous work experience to your advantage? Maybe we can all just go around and say how much experience we had, maybe when originally applying. For those of us like Abhinandini and me who did end up deferring. So I personally also had, I think, similar to Jyotsna, I think it was about 5.5, 6 when I was, as in when I would have planned on originally going to school. Now, obviously, I have an extra year, but I don't think anyone planned that. So basically around 5 to 7.
I can go next. I think we are facing some internet issues. I applied with, like I would have gone with 5 years of WorkX. Now I'll be going with 6 years of WorkX. I know people who apply even with 3 years of WorkX. I don't know what's the best answer, but I think anything, if you apply when you have 3 to like 6 years of WorkX is the normal norm and the average. I think that most of us would fit into. And yeah, that would be it. I think there's another question popping. So should we take that?
Let's do it.
Unless somebody wants to add to the previous question.
No, we can move on to the next question.
Jyotsna, do you want to take this next question? The most common mistake. I am going to, I don't know, repeat myself again, start early. That's what I did. That's what I did not do, sorry. What other common mistakes? I think when I first selected my schools, I'm just going to say this out loud, don't shoot your shots low, apply, I think applying is very important. The GMAT and the GRE and everything else is a range. It's a range for a reason, and it's an average for a reason. You can apply with a below average, and of course, an above average would be better, but a below average does not completely ruin your chances. So do not give yourself any reason to not apply. Just apply.
Yeah, I would like to second that. Like, I think a lot of candidates, like before, like even getting into the school process, start to have these thoughts that okay, like my company is not as well represented in people who go to MBA, or like my college isn't, or so on and so forth, or my GPA is low. Uh, just apply. Like I think it doesn't like a simple LinkedIn search doesn't actually give you the right kind of clarity.
Yeah, and I
Plus
think
100, I would say. Yeah.
there's
Go
some
ahead,
schools
Meghna.
that's a dream for everyone. Sorry, I was just gonna say, like a school could, all our schools could probably fill at least one or two classes of equally qualified candidates. So don't shoot yourself before anyone else has a chance to do it for you. I just wanted to add one thing, which I think Jyotsna said earlier, but I thought was the biggest mistake I made while I was applying. I compared myself to other people. I was like, this person in with this profile got this and this person got that, and it honestly made the process just, I think, more stressful for me, because which was you don't need to make the process more stressful. So I think getting into that idea of, like, as we said, like, preconceived notions about this school will have this kind of profile, or this person might get into this, or trying to um, get caught up in that in any way, or even taking rejections personally in any way, can make things very difficult. And as I think all of us would agree, I hope, all the schools we're going to could have a lot of, like, talented candidates in each spot, and fill multiple classes, but so there's no point in blaming yourself for any outcomes.
If I can just add to it, I think I so strongly
Thank you so much,
resonate with.
Meghna. So, please,
Oh,
Mr.
sorry.
please.
Yeah, I strongly resonate with what Jyotsna said. And I think I would just add that cut out negative thoughts and toxicity from like your life. And if you have to not speak to a few people, just don't speak to a few people for a few months, and try to think positively about yourself and get like really honest feedback from your closest friends. I think that's something that a lot of people don't do.
Yeah, thank you so much, Abhinandini. So, before we sign off, I know we're reaching time. For the benefit of the audience who've joined in late, Abhinandini, could you again describe the initiative for us, please?
Yeah, thank you so much, Vishesh. So, we are a part of Students Fight COVID. We're a community of 250 plus recent admits and current students from top MBA programs. And the group's mission is to mobilize more and more donations to fight this ongoing COVID crisis in India. And we're doing this via one-on-one mentoring and group coaching sessions. We've raised 18 lakhs so far, which is approximately 25,000 USD. To know more about us, contribute, and also help us in this entire initiative, please visit our website, which is studentsfightcovid.in, or look us up at Instagram, which is studentsfightcovid is the Instagram handle, or reach out to any of us.
Thank you so much, Abhinandini. Thank you all of you. Thank you guys for taking time out to interact with the audience at GMAT Club. We hope to have you soon. Maybe once you're into your MBA application, once you're into your MBA journeys, to know how things are progressing. And thank you everybody for tuning in. I know it's a working day, and thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.
Thanks, Ashish, for organizing this. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.